Happy holidays.
Thank you. You brought cookies.
I brought you some cookies, yes.
Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you're here.
So you have something to drink?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you.
You look so great.
Thank you.
And your house is amazing. I just
you.
love everything. It's like a museum in here. I love coming over here, and I don't think I could ever see everything in here. It's like, when you go to when you go to a museum and you never get a chance to see everything. I love coming over here.
Thank you. Yeah, and I change it around a little bit.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, so it
do you
doesn't get
like
boring.
switch out pieces
I
and
just
stuff?
switched out that piece yesterday, and then I put a different flute up there, just to have a different flute up there.
Yeah, just a different look.
Yeah. Because after a while, you quit noticing things.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
It just becomes mundane, and I switch her out every now and then. But when you keep passing the same art, you don't see it anymore.
Right. That's
So,
true.
yeah.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So we are here, thank you by the way, for being involved in this project. And so we're here to, well, first of all, let's talk about how we met. So you and I met at a Red Tent Collaborative. And for those watching, Red Tent Initiative is an organization that is run by survivors and allies of people who have experienced sexual assault, human trafficking, domestic violence. And that organization works to fill in the gaps where social services are not able to help people in our community. Every year they do an arts collaborative that features artists' works and stories from survivors. And I met you at the 2018 collaborative, and then we got to know each other working on the 2019 collaborative, where you told your story. And story, it's an epic, it's stories. Like, I feel like you have experienced enough suffering to cover like 5 lifetimes. Like, when I think of when I hear the word phoenix, or a phoenix, I picture you. Like, I mean, anyway, it's hard for me to like even, it's like this epic tale of terror.
True.
So for this project, of course, the theme of this docu-series is the art of recovery, and you have recovered from many horrors in your lifetime, but there's one in particular that caused me to ask you specifically to be involved in this project. So to get there, I just want to kind of recap your story until that point.
Okay.
So stop me if I get something wrong.
Okay.
And we'll stop along the way and chat a little bit on our journey to this point that I want to focus on for us. So you have suffered a lifetime of abuse, physical assault, sexual assault, mental abuse. Your stories cover the gambit of abuses, starting from 5 years old, and at the hands of father and mother. At one point you were sold.
Yes.
Very poor families,
Yes.
several times living out of the car.
Yes.
And you were sold. How old were you when you were sold?
I believe I was 5 or 6 when I was sold, and it was to an elderly lady in Washington. And I don't know how much my father got for me, but she sat me in this chair and she told me that I was going to learn how to make noodles because she could make more money if she had 2 people making noodles.
Okay.
And I remember all the wooden racks on her table, and she had me on phone booths so I could see up over the table. I was so small because I was a small child on top of it. But I can remember all the noodles, handmade noodles, and I was going to be working for her.
You were supposed to make noodles.
Yes.
And then it was your aunt,
That found
correct?
me,
That
yes.
found you. And how did she find you?
Well, I lived with my aunt and uncle at that time, and my father came to visit me, and he wanted to take me to the store, and he just took me. He didn't bring me back. And apparently my aunt must have gotten a hold of him or found out where he was and found out what he did with me, and she came and found me. And I remember because the old lady had put me in this room, I think it was an attic room, on a cot with some kind of a crate with a little lamp on it, and the ceiling was arched. It was very narrow. My aunt couldn't stand up in there. And she woke me up sitting on the edge of the bed crying because she was so happy she found me.
Oh my goodness.
And she took me out of there, picked me up and carried me out of there.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And I remember you telling me a story about ribbons.
Yes.
And that your mother would steal ribbons from the cemetery.
In the cemetery, in the graves.
To put in your hair.
Yeah.
Was that because she couldn't afford ribbons, or was that?
It was because she couldn't afford ribbons, but she always tried to put on a show for people like she was a good mom.
Okay.
And by having ribbons in my hair, it made her look like a better mother.
Okay.
Because we looked a little better.
Right.
And people
right.
thought if we looked good, they wouldn't know she was beating us.
Ah, I see.
Torturing us.
Right.
So.
Okay. So then after that, there were 3 abusive husbands,
Yes.
partners. The first was an alcoholic.
Yes.
And that was physical and sexual
Physical
assault.
and sexual, yes.
And then the second,
Molested my children and tortured me when I wouldn't do what he wanted me to do. He would want me to go to bars and bring home men to have sex with them so he could watch. He wanted me to urinate on him, and I refused. And that's when he tied me up in the shower and scalded me. So, and shortly after that is when I finally had a breakdown, and because I had a will done where if anything happened to me, my brother and his wife would get my kids. So I knew if I was dead, my kids would be safe. So I swallowed a whole bottle of pills to try to kill myself so
that your kids
my kids would be safe, because I called HRS for help, and they said they were going to come out and take my kids away. I said, don't take my kids, take him. He's the problem.
Right.
And they said, no, give us your name and address and we'll come out and pick up your kids, and then there'll be an investigation. So I hung up the phone, and that's when I took the pills. Because I knew I didn't want my kids taken away.
Right.
So as soon as I set that pill bottle down on the counter, it was like it echoed like thunder. And I realized, I said to myself, what have I done? So I got in my car and I drove myself to the hospital. I didn't tell anyone. So I walked in, and I walked past the waiting room. I remember looking, and the waiting room was packed full of people. And I was already dizzy because I hadn't eaten for a couple of days. And I walked straight up to the registration window and I said, I just swallowed a whole bottle of Meloril, and your waiting room is full, and I don't think I have that long to wait. And his eyes just, and he came right around and took me right in. Of course, they called the police on me, and the police officer was very ugly to me. And she said, I just lost a friend with cancer, and people like you make me sick. She didn't know what I'd been through.
Right.
She had no idea
Right.
of why I did it.
Right.
Didn't ask, didn't care. she just belittled me even more. So I remember I wound up in ICU, and I remember hearing them, I don't think she's going to make it through the night, because I could hear all this stuff, but I couldn't respond. But I could hear them saying, yeah, she's not going to make it. And I'm thinking, okay, my brother will get my kids.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so from there they sent me to Tampa Heights, which was a psychiatric hospital in Tampa. And I was there, I think, around 3 weeks.
What did happen to the kids? I can't remember.
Well, he took care of the kids, him and his mom, while I was in there. And shortly after I came out, I left.
You left
Of
and
course,
took the
I left. I took Wendy. He wouldn't let me have Sarah. Wendy was the one he was bothering at that point. He hadn't touched the other two, so I thought they were safe. Wayne was a boy and Sarah was his own daughter. So I thought they would be safe, but they weren't.
So that was husband number 2.
Yes.
Husband number 3, did he know, well, and maybe you don't know, did he know he was gay when you married, or is that something he discovered?
I think
later?
He knew. I didn't know until just several years ago, maybe about 8 years ago, or less, but I didn't know. But 6 months into the marriage, he wanted me to move into the other bedroom because there was nothing physical happening after the wedding. And I was really confused by that, and he'd be really short with me, or he'd go on business trips and not call, or suspicious charges on the charge account. And then after, well, he lost a job. It was a high-paying job. He lost his job. Then he got another one. Then he lost that like 6 weeks later. So then, you know, we're losing our house. We had this huge house in Boynton Beach on the water, and new cars, fairly new cars. And so he says, well, I found a job up in Alabama, and so I'm going up there. So I said, okay, I'm not going this time. We don't have a marriage. We sleep in separate rooms. We don't have a marriage. We're roommates. So I said, I'm not going this time. So the day after he left, I'm still down there in that house being foreclosed on. Sarah's in counseling because she'd been raped. And I'm trying to deal with all of this and the foreclosure. My vehicles are gonna be repossessed.
And was there a cocaine issue?
Yes, but I didn't know it at the time.
Okay.
I did not know it at that time. So anyway, because he had new antral windows drilled in his sinuses, you know, because he had sinus trouble. Well, I didn't connect it at that time. So it wasn't until after I actually lived here and met an old neighbor, found an old neighbor that was in our neighborhood, and he says, and he's gay. He says, well, darling, didn't you know Wayne was gay? I'm like, what? So he said, yeah, I came home from work early several times and found him and Andy, his boyfriend, in the kitchen in their underwear with cocaine and coffee. So that's when everything kind of connected for me, that the reason he lost his jobs is because he's out there in the parking lot during the day sleeping in his car because he's all coked up and everything. And so, and he must have failed the second drug test for the second job, but that's where all our money went. We had money.
Yeah.
And then when the house goes into foreclosure, I'm like, well, we're gonna be okay. We've got money in the bank. Well, no, we don't. Well, where's my money? Where's my IRA? He cashed that in. He forged my name and cashed in my IRA because it was all through his companies.
So tell us where in what situation were you left when, what was his name?
Wayne.
When Wayne left, moved out of state, what position were you left in?
The house was being foreclosed on. My car was going to be repossessed as well as his. I had no money. He left me with no money, and he took almost all of the furniture with him. So I was there in this big house with no income, no insurance, and nothing. You know,
Yeah.
Everything was being taken, and there was no money in the bank. He left me with no money, and I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I was stressing so bad. And then the day after he left, I got a call from a member of his family wanting to get in touch with him because his mother just died the night before. And I didn't know how to reach him, but I did manage to find him because he had a cell phone that he didn't know I knew he had. But and I called him and I asked him if he would get me a plane ticket to come up to the funeral to Georgia. That's where his mom lived. Because he traveled so much, he had all these frequent flyer miles, and he could have gotten me a free ticket. Well, he said no. And I said, and I don't have any money, you know. So he said no, and I remember walking through that half-empty house from one end to the other. It was like a 2,400 square foot house, which was big for me. And I'm screaming, and I'm yelling, and I'm angry. I'm so angry. And I remember I got this really sharp pain up my neck and wrapped around my head, and I got this horrible, horrible headache. And I didn't realize because it was just Sarah there with me, and she's just a teenager, and she's not there much. You know, she's a teenager. Yeah. So I didn't realize that I was slurring. I didn't realize I had almost lost complete use of my left hand and my leg. And I was dragging my foot and just thought I was tired. And I believe it was about the third day I decided to drive myself up to the hospital because I wasn't getting better. I couldn't get the headache to stop. And my vision was blurry. And so I drove up there and I walked in. I kind of dragged in, but I didn't realize I was dragging in. Yeah. And they took me in immediately and said I'd had a stroke. But it was too late. I waited too long to get the medication that they give people that have strokes for no lasting effects. Right. So they admitted me and discovered that I had 3 tiny aneurysms in the top of my brain on top of that, and one was ready to burst. So they said I had about 14 hours to live and that I needed to make arrangements for my child. And at the same time, a social worker was in there and filling out all the paperwork because I had no money. I had no insurance. I had no job. Right. My house was going into foreclosure, so I had nothing. Yeah. And so they did all these tests and all the wires on my brain. And so finally, the doctors wouldn't look me in the eye. So I had a cardiologist, I had a neurologist, and a couple others. So he came in and he said, we want to do one more test. You know, they saw the brain damage, and they said, we want to go up in your brain with a camera, but it's a little risky, but under the circumstances, you're going to die anyway. Right. So they went up there with a camera, but the morning before they did it, they were coming to get me like the next day. And so that morning, I woke up to the sound of a wolf growling and whiskers running across my top lip, and I could feel it breathing in my mouth. I could feel it just. So I opened my eyes a little bit, and I could feel this hot breath going in my mouth and little whiskers across here and like a little slight growl, and everything was white, and I was floating like on a white platform, but I'm sure it was my bed, but the walls weren't there. There was just total whiteness. And then the door opened, and I could see a darkness from the door, and then the nurse came in. And I remember asking her if she saw that. And she wasn't understanding me well because I wasn't talking real well. And so I had to repeat it, and I said, there's a wolf in here. And she said, you're having a nightmare. And I said, no, I'm not. I knew what was happening. I didn't know what the end result was going to be from that. So they came and got me. She got me ready to go down, and so they came and got me and, you know, brought me back later. And so that night after I got out of recovery, I got a phone call from my friend Lee Hallman Wyndham, who is a descendant of Crazy Horse. And she asked me if I got her gift. And I said, the wolf? And she said, yes, her name is Sheho. And at the end of the 3rd day, you're going to be healed and you're going home. On the 3rd day, I went home. And So anyway, every time somebody would come into that room, the wolf would jump off of my bed and go onto the chair in the corner of the room. And when people would leave, I could feel her jump back up on my bed. I could feel the pressure. And anytime anyone came in, she'd leave again. So the next day, all the doctors come in, all of them. And they're all smiling. They're all looking me in the eye where they wouldn't before. And they said they didn't understand it. I still had brain damage. I would need physical therapy and speech therapy, but the aneurysms were totally gone, and the only thing in my brain was brain damage from the stroke. But they couldn't understand it. The aneurysms, there was no sign of them at all. So I know the wolf healed it.
You are Native American.
Yes.
Where are your roots from?
Well, my DNA says, it's been tested like 3 times, but it says European, Native American, East Asian, a little Sub-Saharan African, and way back Neanderthal. that explains some.
Right.
So I'm an undocumented, or my family has no census numbers.
Okay.
It's just basically word of mouth from family. And some DNA out there, but stories from my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. She was a bone reader, and she read tea leaves too.
Yeah.
But she used to tell me, we don't talk about being Native American.
After your stroke, when you were sent out of the hospital, you, correct me if I'm wrong, you had nowhere to go.
Right.
And so, but you still had healing to do. So you had to learn to walk again and learn to talk again and feed yourself.
I could feed myself.
You could feed yourself?
Yes, because it affected my left side, and I'm right-sided.
Oh, I got you.
I'm right-sided.
I'm right-sided.
I'm right-footed too. So after that, they sent me home, and I went to speech therapy and physical therapy 3 times a week, and it was all free because I was, a welfare person.
Right.
So, and after that, I realized that I had to get out of that house, and the only way to do that was to move to Plant City with my parents and my mom.
Your mom.
Yes.
Who was your abuser.
Yes.
And that is one of, to me, that just resonates so loudly.
Yeah.
That's one of the parts of your story that haunts me.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were able to rise from that above, you were able to convalesce in such a toxic situation and somehow find the strength to build yourself back up in such a terrible environment. It's just astounding to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it truly is. It just, in my mind, you're just such a warrior. And I mean, it takes, I just can't even really fathom the strength that it takes for that. So, I mean, I'm just honored to know you, to know a human being who is capable of such things. I am in awe, inspired, always flabbergasted, always amazed that you didn't start creating artworks until after your stroke.
Right. Yeah.
Was that, so tell me about that. Was that part of your recovery, or it was just something that happened while you were in recovery? How did that all work?
Before I had the stroke, I was always into some kind of creating.
Okay.
of different things.
So you did art
Yes.
somehow before
Somehow,
that.
some form of creativity, because I always had these ideas, and I have such a vivid imagination that I like to figure out how to do things that most people can't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you do.
Yeah. So, but I'd always want to be like a visual artist, you know, with paint and whatever. But I never had the encouragement or the opportunity to take any lessons or classes, and since I dropped out of school at an early age, I went back when I had kids and actually graduated from high school. But I'd always wanted to be what I consider to be a real artist. You know, just
A real artist.
a real artist.
Okay.
So one day, this friend of mine who was an artist, he hands me a handful of colored pencils and a photograph of a spider. And I hate spiders. I'm terrified of spiders. And he says, sit down, draw this. And he was a dear friend. He was 20-some years older than me, but he was like an uncle. Draw this. So I did. And he says, you need to take some classes. Go see this person. I'm going to see this person. You need to come see this person. I'll pay for your classes right away. I'll pay for you to have several months of them, 6 months. I'm like, okay. So I started drawing. Growing up being told you're ugly, nobody's ever gonna love you, you're worthless, you're stupid. So getting into art, as much as I dove into it and did the very best that I could, it told me that I wasn't worthless. And then I got a lot of attention doing this art, which made me feel like, gee, people do like me.
Yeah.
I'm not unlikable, I'm not unlovable, I'm not ugly, even though I thought I was growing up. And you know, I would hold my head down. I wouldn't let people look in my face. I would always hold my head down. But the art, it was such a challenge for me. It's like, not only am I going to excel in this, I'm going to be the best that I can be, and maybe the best of anybody.
Let's take a walk around. Speaking
Okay,
of,
okay.
let's take a look at some of your art.
All right.
So there's a story that goes with this piece.
Yes, and this is actually called what they call a winter count, but it's usually done on the back of a buffalo robe.
Okay.
And basically what it is, it's milestones in a person's life that basically tells their biography. And it starts in the center, and then it goes in a circle. And it's kind of like the circle of life. You know, everything just goes around. And so if you want me to tell you what each means, I can do that.
Sure.
Okay, well, it starts in the center, where I was born in September, what they call a hunting moon.
Okay.
And then I have a brother coming along, a sibling. And then it goes here, which is life is very bad. This is a bad symbol. And then it's I'm strong. And here is war in my family, fighting. My parents are always fighting and hitting each other with things that cause them to bleed and have to get stitches. And it splatters me in the wall with blood. So this one is, I'm sick. I was a very sick little child. They didn't really take us to doctors until they thought we were gonna die. And then at one point, when they thought I was gonna die, they dumped me on my Aunt and Uncle's doorstep and left me. Here we have, let's see, go around, and I'm hungry. I was very hungry. We were always hungry, and I lived in fear. And this is my mother in our house where the fear was coming from. And then I have another sibling come along, so this is the same tribe. And then the sun shines. And then this is when I went to live with my aunt. The sun was shining. I had food. And then this is where my mother came and took me back again. And then this one is, okay, this is more fear because she took me back again. And this is where she's hitting me and beating me. And this is when I was praying for somebody. I actually pretended that I was somebody else's child, and that my real parents were looking for me and were going to find me and take me from them. And this is where I ran away, was making tracks. This is when I was 14 and kept running away. And then I ran across this really bad man in my life. and I was crawling away from him and begging for a creator to hear me and help me. And this is when I'm making tracks on the road again, and I'm being strong. And this is where I'm about 30 years old, and I'm a woman, I'm married, and this is when I have my 3 babies. And this is my Earth Lodge, my home, and another bad man who I was married to at the time. And here is where I'm kind of discovering myself, and I'm accomplishing things in life. And this is when I have plenty of food in my life. And this is all when I was kind of meeting Harry and married to Harry. And this is, everything was good for a while everywhere. And then this one is the moon and the sun are shining bright. And then this is a wise man that came into my life and me, and that was Harry at the time. And this is where I lost my son. And this is where I'm grieving, just horrible. And this is the spirits above trying to help me get through that. And this is where I'm kind of changing direction in life, because life is not the same anymore. This is a new moon in my life. And this is where I get inspired. And this is where I formed the Turtle Moon Band within my tribe. And then there's 3 years has passed, and I'm the chief of my tribe now. And the sun is shining on my home. It's 5 years, and then Mom is living here with us for 5 years in this house.
Oh.
And feeding me her heart medication and giving me a heart attack.
Oh my gosh. We did not even talk about that.
No, we didn't talk about that. And this is where we were prisoners, and this is where Earth Lodge and things are hidden. She's hiding stuff from us. And this is when I finally get her out of my house. And she's gone. And then this is making tracks and the sun shining again. I got her out, and there's peace in my house and a new moon, but she's still causing trouble. This is her. She's still causing trouble. She's telling people that my art is all fake, and I print it on a computer and I just color it.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And she got a hold of all my emails and sent emails to all of my friends. She would get up in the middle of the night and go through our stuff, so every door in this house has a keyed lock on it, including my closet. And then this one is fear again, because of everything she's doing. She filed a complaint against us for elder abuse. Unfortunately for me, I kept a diary for 5.5 years of everything she had done to us, including strangling my cat. And the caseworker said if we had been 75, we could have filed charges against her for what she had done to us that I had in that book. And then this is all of us, all of my siblings were in the same tribe. And this is when Mom was causing war again with all of us kids. And so that's the last that I had. So I probably need to do a bigger canvas and update it. But that's the story.
And you know what? Something that amazes me is that you are such a humanitarian. I don't know how else to say it. Like, why would you not just leave that old, horrible woman to, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
you continue to care for someone who did nothing but dole you misery your entire life, and you still had enough humanity to not let her go out on the street.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. But even as she was dying in the hospital in the palliative care unit, I sat there and played my flute for her and told her I forgave her, but I wouldn't touch her. I did not touch her because I was afraid
That she would seep into your pores.
Yes, I did not touch her. She's dying and I can't even touch her.
Yeah.
And when I left the hospital that day, it was very strange because I'm leaving and I'm not crying. I mean, she's dead. She's turning black. She turned black. And it's like I had this overwhelming feeling of freedom, but I also had this overwhelming feeling of loss. Like there will never be any fixed to that. There will never be a point when she says, I'm proud of you. You were a good kid.
Yeah.
That would never happen.
It's never gonna come.
So I had to accept that, and that was hard. Now this flute, it's a Brent Haynes flute. He's a very well-known flute maker, but this was a trade. This is a $1,200 flute.
Okay.
It's a concert flute, and I beaded him a pipe stem, so I got this.
Oh,
Yeah, 'cause
nice.
there's no way I could afford a $1,200 flute.
Yeah.
And
That is
it's a
gorgeous.
beautiful flute. Yeah, that's
So
coral. And
beautiful.
this is ebony in here.
And then recently you made one of your own.
Yes.
Speaking of trying new things,
Yeah.
not being afraid to try new things,
Yes.
show us
And that's this one. And this flute, the reason I made this flute is because I go to a festival. I'm actually on the committee and part of the team for Native Rhythms Festival, which happens every year in November in Melbourne.
Okay.
So 2011, I won first place in the art competition and first place in the flute players competition.
Oh wow.
There are 3 competitions. If you win first place one year, you can't enter the next year.
Oh.
So
okay.
the only thing I could have entered the following year was a flute makers competition.
Oh.
So my friend Utah.
Challenge accepted.
Yes. So my friend Utah, who is a flute maker, he says, well, come over to my workshop. You can use all my tools. I'll kind of guide you and you can make a flute. So I did, and I tell you what, it gave me a whole new respect for flute makers. And every little, see all these little fine little places here? I filed every bit of this down with an emery board
Wow.
instead of regular sandpaper. But all of this, I made this. And this is basically, it's based on the Mayan calendar when they said the world was going to end.
Okay.
So this is the symbol for December 21st, 2012. This is all things in the world that are being destroyed. There's like the big buildings here in large cities, and all the telephone poles are coming down with fire, and there's the Statue of Liberty, and I think the Eiffel Tower, oh there it is. But everything is burning and being destroyed. And this is also the date for December 12th, December 21st, 2012. And on this side is December 22nd, where the water is all clean and pure again, and the sky is, the air is clean, and these are all the people of the earth with all the religious symbols holding hands and being connected. Yes, this is my little cradle board baby. Now this I actually did from a black and white photograph in a history book.
Oh my word.
Yes. And I love her
And
eyes.
is that pencil?
Yes, this is all pencil. But I love her eyes. I love the faces.
Now, how long does a piece like this take?
Okay, this piece probably, if I'm working on it every day, a piece like that will probably take me like 4 to 5 months.
Wow.
Because I'm so picky about everything. Even like the tacks and the beads. I mean, every little thing in the tacks and the
Yes.
cradle board. It's like, it's got to be right. This is actually a print of a large piece, and this is our fire mound from the tribal grounds. And when there's a firekeeper, someone has to stay with the fire 24/7.
Okay.
As long as that fire is lit, the firekeeper has to be there to guard that fire.
Okay.
And we bring the firekeeper gifts, which are tobacco or sage or cedar or anything like that we
Okay.
want to bring. And the wood comes from the different 4 corners, north, south, east, and west, if they can. And I call him the guardian, but I love his eyes
love
too.
the hair. That hair is amazing.
I like him a lot too. But the eyes are always the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one is, I call her Grandmother Turtle Moon. And in Cherokee culture, there are 7 directions, there are 7 sacred ceremonies. And I believe that's the way in most tribes, there's 7. And it's north, south, east, and west, above, below, and center of self. And this is, I call her the grandmother Sharman, but there's 7 turquoise nuggets going down each side, 7 ears of corn, because corn is a very important staple in Native culture. There's 7 baby turtles, and there's 7 new souls that are being sent to Earth to be born.
Wow.
Yeah. And this one is the tree of life, and this represents Cherokee medicine, women's medicine for water, and men's medicine for fire. In the tribe, when we're doing different ceremonies and things, women only handle water. Men only handle fire.
Interesting.
Yes. So this is, these are 7 little spirits, because there's 7. And there's animals all through here, because they say that you have to experience spirits of animals to help you grow and become the person that you need to become. That is a buffalo jawbone tomahawk. And that was my last one, and I just finished that in the last year and a half.
Wow.
Because I didn't want to let that last one go to waste.
Yeah.
And
you were saying it was your last job. Like, did you have a stockpile of them?
Oh yes, I did.
Or
Yes.
like, and where did they come from?
Well, I actually
Did you
bought these out
harvest
of
them?
New York.
Okay.
Yeah. Years ago, probably 25 years ago, and this was my last one. And there's one over here. Now see the different colors of them?
Yeah.
It's weird, but you
That's
never
not
know.
shocking, though. I mean, you would imagine
Yeah.
that.
So there's different colors, and I don't know if that's the diet of the animal or the geographical location of where the animal lives.
Suggesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even though I used a dye on them to make them look older and antiqued, they still come out different. So I don't know if it's the age of the animal. You know, it's kind of strange, but I've noticed that working with bones and stuff a lot over the years. There's a certain balance to it. Like when you hold it, you can feel the balance in it, because it's like when I was making these, I always felt the balance, like it's going to be comfortable. That's where I put the
That's
wrap.
going to be
Yeah.
fit for you.
Yes. And it's, if you're riding a horse and you're swinging this at somebody, you're going to hurt them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Do you ride horses too?
No.
Oh, finally, something
but
you
it's
don't
like-
do.
It's like, if you're, because you've got to prepare for everything, right?
Right.
It's funny. I know, I gotta I think this stuff through. It's like, okay, what if I'm there and I gotta do this, and okay, so I think things through when I'm making them, like I'm actually gonna use them.
Yeah.
And I feel the balance, I feel the weight of it, and the stability, like that rock up there. That rock is really tight in that rawhide.
Yeah.
And if you put it on wet, rawhide stretches when it's wet. When it dries, it shrinks, so it tightens it up even more. That's how they get drums to make the good sound.
Yes.
Over here I have Anita. Her name was Quicksilver at the time of this one. And we were setting up a show at Wilderness Lodge at Disney. And we had all this stuff spread out to educate people. Buffalo robes, drums, everything. But the sun was coming through the skylight, and I was taking pictures, but this is what I saw. So I drew that from the picture, but she had soles on her moccasins. I didn't put soles, so I made them look like her feet. And this gourd rattle, it's all wrapped in beads. I actually made that for her.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. And that's exactly what she looks like.
It's hard to look at pictures of your family and think that there was ever a time in your life when you thought you were ugly. I mean, as an outsider,
yeah. But looking at that, it's like I was never ugly.
Yeah.
And if only, I just often have wondered.
Well, and I mean, then that sparks me to think too that, well, what if you were ugly? That didn't,
it didn't stop
being
me.
ugly wouldn't have, well, no, what I'm saying is that being ugly wouldn't have made you deserving of abuse and
Right.
neglect and a life of horrors.
Yeah.
So I've got my hand in my pocket,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling this
Oh, yes.
this tobacco tie, which I didn't realize that's what it was called until you told me recently, that you gave me the first time that I came over here and we met and talked. And I've held on to it this whole time, and now I'm realizing, because you told me recently, that I was supposed to burn it, that I was supposed to release it and burn it, that it was a prayer.
If you do open that and want it to go up, you put it in the fire.
Okay, so what do I do? I mean, I'm not going to do it right now.
Yeah.
I'm saving this.
Just cut open the string and sprinkle the tobacco in the fire.
Oh, there's tobacco.
There's tobacco,
here.
sacred tobacco.
That's why it's called a sacred tobacco tie.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel really
Now,
ignorant.
it's sacred because it's grown without chemicals
Okay.
and as natural as it can be.
Yeah.
So that's what's considered sacred tobacco.
And then there's a prayer.
Then there's a prayer. Every time you make one, you put a prayer in there with it. Yeah. You can make them for specific people, or you can just put a general prayer in there. Whoever is gifted with this, let them find peace, or let them be well, or just a prayer.
Yeah. And you're going to show me how to do it?
Yes. You want to get started?
Yes.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank
right.
you.
So we're going to make some of these. This is a 7-fold. This is a traditional Cherokee 7-fold tobacco tie. They're a little more complicated. They're a little harder to hold on to make. But it's a 7-fold for the 7 directions and 7 clans, 7 sacred ceremonies. You can pick any color you want except white.
Why
Here's-
except white? What's white?
White is basically just for ceremony. Just for ceremony.
Gotcha.
So, and here's stuff we can use
And we're
to
going to
tie
make one
'em.
of these and one of these?
Yes.
And are they the same thing? I know they're different styles, but are they for the same purpose?
Yes,
They're
yes.
both.
This is just a fancier one.
Gotcha.
Now, if I were going to gift somebody a tobacco tie, depending on how much they mean to me, that person, would depend on which one I give them.
I see.
They're both full of prayers, but this one, specifically for Cherokee, I would give a Cherokee elder this one. And when you go to visit an elder or a chief, you usually bring them a gift of tobacco.
I see.
That is
Okay.
the best gift that you can bring, like an elder or a chief, is you give them a gift of tobacco, because that's used for prayer. Pick out
Okay.
any color you want here.
I love this.
And then there's the blue like you have, and I have more blue
You know
here.
what? I'm going to switch because I
Whatever
really
you
do
want.
love this blue,
And here's,
but I don't want to give away mine.
I'll show you this one first. And I think I'll just make, I'll do a flower one too. So, okay.
I
put
think
your
I'll
little
do
square.
this for that
Okay,
style.
and let's get a piece of string ready.
Okay.
So I'll cut you a string, and they're about that long.
All right.
It doesn't really matter.
The length doesn't matter?
No,
Okay.
unless you want to tie it onto something that you need a little bigger string.
Gotcha.
Okay, so get a pinch of tobacco, and I usually reach down in here where it's already crumbled. And it's usually just a pinch. That's way too much. But we'll
Okay.
put some out here for you anyway.
All right.
And crunch it up in the center. And put your
I like
prayer
it.
in there.
I like touching it.
It feels good, doesn't it? It's like the
Yeah.
earth. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, kind of putting part of me in there.
Well, you are. You're putting your prayer in there. You're putting your thoughts, your DNA, your time, which is a piece of your life. Even if it's only a minute, it's still a piece of your life. So, you got it all in the center?
Okay.
Yep, that's pretty good. So let's pull up these 4 corners like this. And then take the 3rd corner like that. Just tuck it in there. Yep, you got it. And what I do, everybody does a little different, but what I do, I push my finger in there, squish it down really good, and then I bring up the other corner. And then I kind of close them all and pinch it together like this. Just like that. Yep. Pinch it all together. Make it as tight as you can, and then I just take the string and wrap it around and tie it in a knot. Instead of having it all bunched in the center, we're going to elongate it just a little bit and crunch it up really good. And we'll have it kind of like this. This is fun.
It is.
You know, every year at Native Ribbons, I teach 2 workshops.
Oh, I want to go sometime.
Oh, it's fabulous.
I never knew about it until I met you. Now that I know it's always in November, is it always the same
it's
weekend?
Second weekend,
Okay.
always. Yes, and it's all free.
Wow,
Oh,
really?
yeah, it's all free. Now, some of the workshops, like mine, are minimal cost, like $5.
Yeah.
But I only charge that if I have to buy some supplies and stuff.
Right,
but we
right.
try to keep it all free. And we work on donations and grants and sponsors. 1, 2.
I feel like my tobacco is just getting away from me. I have no control over this. It's like watercolor. Okay, 1,
1, 2. All right,
2.
2. 3. 4. Kind of like that. Okay.
Oh, is it supposed to be in the middle? Is it supposed to meet in the middle?
I can, yeah. I kind of meet mine in the middle.
Okay.
That's 4.
Let me just adjust here.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right. 5. 6, down at the bottom, 6, and the 7th one is where you fold it together in the middle.
Okay. Oh, and look.
Now the trick is to tie it while you're holding it.
All right. And
Hi, my name is Joyce Bugaiski, and my art of recovery is color pencil, watercolor, beadwork with Native American style, and playing my flute.